Welcome to the Big Six Podcast, CBS Sports NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host, joined by Brady Quinn and Laser Douzable. It's Tuesdays with Brady. Pew, 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 pew. It's I have bad hair and it's freezing in my parents' house where I currently am right now. I've been wearing this toboggan the whole way on the road home, so I'm probably just going to keep wearing it. Yeah. Although I'm very near some bayish windows, which may create a little heat, but it's the temperature dropped. No lie, guys. On let's see, today's Wednesday. So on Monday, it was 83 degrees in Raleigh or in North Carolina, and now it's in the 40s. Pretty awesome. Oh,
wow. That's actually a big drop off, though.
Yeah. What do you think I was going to say, Brady? Like 10 degrees?
Yeah, I thought maybe 98 degrees and rising after that big win over Clemson this past week for NC State.
Baby.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, love it. First time Clemson's lost back-to-back games since 2000 in the same season since 2011, which is crazy. Dabo Sweeney is saying that maybe like it's Dabo's like in his feels right now. He's saying like, and I love that we got him there. He's like maybe fans need this. Maybe they need to lose some games, a little entitled. It's like you know what? Jesus had some hardships too, Dabo. Okay, like why don't you settle down, pal?
Brady, what do you think about my guy from Spartanburg on his radio show?
Oh, Tyler.
What did he say?
I mean, Spartanburg.
I will say this, like in defense of Dabo, I do think for whatever reason, man, young people are so much more apt to like just say whatever to older people. And
they're entitled.
I'm not going to go as far as saying that, but I will say like there's not as much respect. And it's troubling to me only because I've got a good buddy, Jeremy Bloom, and he tells me a story about how he started his foundation called Wish of a Lifetime. And what they do is they grant a lot of wishes to elderly folk who are in a position where, they need that sort of support. It's a great organization. But he talked about how when one time I think he was over in Japan and he was riding a bus. And when an elderly woman got up on the bus, everyone stood up. Everyone stood up and gave up their seat to the elderly person. Because it was that sign of respect. He said, and that's how their culture operates. And I think it's weird because like we don't have that in this country right now. It's like people do not listen to those who are older than them, who have experienced more and kind of have that wisdom. And it's sad because like as I grow older and I listen to my kids talk back, I'm like, look, daddy's already been where you're at, right? Like my 7-year-old, I'm like, I can force it. Like I always tell her, I'm like, my magic trick is I can tell her the future. Because I can tell you exactly what it's going to be like, right? Mm-hmm. And I can tell you like when you don't do your homework, what's going to happen, what the teacher's going to say. I can tell all you that. So I do hate that part of it where it happens to be a younger person who Dabo goes after. But it's twofold. It's like, look, they've had an unbelievable run, and I think there is something about college football. Only one team wins it of 133. You should appreciate like what they've built, what they've done. They won 2 national championships, 7 years, whatever it's been. But there's also another side of the conversation where, like, if you want to be real about where Clemson's at, they haven't bought into NIL and the transfer portal. And if that's the case, then, like, you might it might be harder then for you to compete with the other teams that are taking advantage of what's out there right now. So I think all those things can be true, and we don't need to, like, dive too deep into, like, what was said exactly on the call.
So and just and this is belated. I feel bad. I didn't text you. Happy birthday, Brady. You turned to 39 over the weekend.
Yeah, I'm getting old enough where you don't like talking.
Hey, happy birthday!
I was just hearing you talk, and I was like, this sounds like a man who's like just realized he's like he's got 1 year until he turns 40. And I checked your Wikipedia page, and yes, sure enough. But so sorry for missing your birthday, man. I hope you had a good one.
I was in Lawrence, Kansas, freezing my butt off is what we were doing. Although it was a great game.
Heck of a game, though.
Heck of a game, man. Heck of a game. So, it's fun we see students throw a goalpost into a lake after. You're like, this is awesome.
You love it.
This is college football. That's what makes it great.
My buddy Josh, his older brother Rich, who I grew up with in High Point, he went to NC State. When we beat Florida State, when he was I don't think I was at school yet, but it was like 97 or 98. And the students tore down the goalpost in Raleigh. And there's a photo of like on the homepage. It was like the literal front page of the News and Observer. And it's like this, it's the goalpost being carried off, and Rich is riding the goalpost out of Carter Finley Stadium. Like how great, like he's like sitting on top of it, like throwing up the wolf for the pups. Like imagine like your parents pick up the paper, they're like, let's see how the team did.
That is one of the better signs too, like in college football.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
We'll be in Austin this week. Hook 'em.
Yeah.
but like for the wolf pack, like that's one of the cooler ones.
Yeah, and you can't really do the upside down like wolf either. Like you can with the
That'd be weird
down.
to be like,
dudes. Yeah, you can't do the
You're Spider-Man.
Richard Ratcha. Dudes, you mentioned that Dave Doran, NC State's coach, threw some shade at and like I think this is interesting just from a like he's doing this post-game interview with the CW, which is apparently where the crappy ACC games go to live. And they actually do a pretty good job. They got a pylon cam, some cooler stuff. It's better than the ACC network. But
before you go further, Brady, what do you think about like the color analyst, the play-by-play, the sideline reporter, like their dressed down look? What do you think about that?
I haven't really seen it as much. I mean, I'll say this much: when it gets cold out, like I'm okay with people just being warm enough to be able to operate. All right, it was like 37 and rainy and cold, windy as heck in Lawrence. So I was like, man, fashion goes to the wayside at that point. You got to be able to talk. People don't realize like when you get cold like that, you're like you can't talk. Like it gets hard to get
your chest hurts.
Out. I don't know about that, but it just your like whole like mouth freezes up, and you're sitting there like trying to get something out, and your producer's like, "Man, are you all right?"
No,
like,
I'm cold.
With you? Yeah, it's like
yeah. So they wear like polos like during the broadcast.
Like I said, that's on the network to decide. Like it's football. I don't know that people are always looking at everyone to be all like dapper if they don't want to be.
Do you guys
want to go out there and stunt? If not,
who does is it Verducci? Is it not Verducci? Who's the sideline for the Big Noon with Gus and Klatt?
Jenny Taft.
That's Jenny Taft. Yeah. I don't mind the polos on the sideline. Like I just know like if I was doing sideline stuff and you sent me down to like Miami and in October and they're like, you got to wear a suit, Brinson. I'd be like, you really don't want me to. It's gonna be a touch sweaty. Like I'm gonna be poor. I mean, yeah, I just think that's a tough spot to be in. So
what made you bring that up, Lachey?
I don't know, because like Brinson, right? We were trying to find a game and then we realized it was on the CW when we were watching the Clemson NC State game, and then they had a shot where the play-by-play and color guy were up there, and I was like, hold on, they're in polos. Because that's just so foreign to us in this business, right? You call games, I call games. You always dress to the nine, right? Because you're on camera. And then even the sideline reporter, even if they don't have a suit on, at least you have a button-up shirt, right? They'll maybe roll up their sleeves or something like that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get your perspective on that.
Huh.
By the way, one of the things on the CW too, and we'll get to some NFL topics in a second, but I just thought this was funny, is like the first game I watched, I can't remember if it was I think it was a state game. I can't remember exactly which one, but the announcer was like, he's like, and now it's like coming up this Saturday on the CW, another thrilling episode of F Boy Island. You can tell he's just like, he's like, I can't believe I have to do this read. He's like, I'm a professional football announcer, and I'm doing reads on F Boy Island.
You're on the CW, man.
I will no, that happens on a lot of other networks too, because like you get that on CBS and Fox sometimes too.
Oh yeah.
The reality is, when you are a color analyst, that's probably the best thing is you don't have to read promos. At least usually you don't have to.
Yeah.
Because some of that stuff, like it could lead to whatever conversation. You're probably not, especially in football season, watching anything other than film. So
they did then this during the state game. There was one where it's like he's like, and now it's like Schaefer's Cottage. I love this story about this, and the other guy goes, it's a lot better than F Boy Island, that's for sure.
At least they have points to talk about if the game isn't good throughout the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was like dying of this poor guy to read F Boy Island. Okay, so let's get to we'll get to the headlines. Josh McDaniels. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's been fired for like 13 hours so far. He got fired at 1 a.m. Eastern time, 10 p.m. I guess it'd be 11 p.m. Vegas time, right?
Sure. Let's make sure we get the time zones right. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, I'm imagining that like around 11 p.m. Like, don't you think he was like probably did like a bunch of stuff with the kids and the candy, and then like all of a sudden he's like, you need to come in.
He was probably game planning, like what probably happened.
Right.
That's the big game planning day. So he was probably game planning all day, and they might have had a short second where they did something with the kids or whatever, and then they was back into their game planning. So that's probably how he found out.
And he the first coach in NFL history to be fired in twice before the end of his second season. Yeah, which is correct. Just crazy. 8-8 his first year with the Broncos, 3-9, then was fired. I remember I think that was the same year Randy Moss was traded to the Titans. It was like a crazy little stretch there. Then in last year, of course, with the Raiders, started really slow. Came back and finished 6-11. Not a great year, but I mean, this roster is pretty crappy. And then 3-5, and they were 3-3, and he gets fired by Mark Davis the day after an embarrassing Monday Night Football loss in Detroit to the Lions. I'm curious what you guys think here. I mean, like, I get it. You own the team. You can do what you want. And Dave Ziegler, the GM, fired as well. But it's like, man, that is a short leash.
Yeah, especially for an owner who just had to fire John Gruden, who had a 10-year deal. Now, I'm sure there's enough. Maybe they were able to get out from underneath the monies.
They settled or something,
settled because of cause and all that. But the reality is, this was a 6-year deal. He still has 4 full years left on his contract, and so it's just. I think it'd be hard, whoever the next guy is, to think that Mark Davis is going to be patient with you, only because of how this all went. Now, granted, I don't know where else you could really point. I mean, their offense has been the issue. This was Jimmy Garoppolo, who they wanted to bring in after they moved on from Derek Carr, and clearly took a step back with Jimmy Garoppolo in that system, which is shocking or even surprising, considering Garoppolo and healthy has been good. And on top of it, he knows that system, right? He was with Josh McDaniels in New England. So I'm not really sure what other move you had to make other than you could bench Garoppolo and go with O'Connell, but I can't think that's really going to be.
They did that. They did that
today. Today they did that, though. And what I'm saying is, maybe Josh McDaniels was like, I'm not going to do that. If you're going to do that, just fire me now. Maybe that was the conversation. It's tough to know, but if you're calling cards offense, your offense is really the thing that's been holding this team back right now. And it's not personnel, because they have studs. Yeah. It's the fact that they're just not scoring points, and it's hard to draw your finger to what it is. The tough thing is like, you usually only get 2 shots to be a head coach. And Josh McDaniels was patient after 10 years after the first time being a head coach in Denver. And you got to remember, too, what happened in Denver was really fascinating, because he started off 6-0. He finishes 2-8 the rest of that season, that first year. And how they finished, because remember, they were like on the cover of Sports Illustrated after they beat New England in Denver that year. They had the throwback.
In overtime, he's in midfield. He's like dancing in Bell. He's like, "Oh, hey, Bill, sorry." Yeah,
like they were on top of the world. And we played against them when I was in Cleveland that year. And I remember being like, dude, these guys might, end up going on the playoffs, making a run. Like their defense was ridiculous. Their offense was hard to stop. Well, then they kind of go 2-8 down the stretch. The next year, you get off to a slow start. They drafted Tebow. I was there as a part of that group. And you could feel like there was such a pressure to play Tebow, even though Orton was putting up ridiculous stats in that offense that year. And then there was the Spygate 2 thing that happened, which ultimately led to his demise there. So that was, he was patient waiting for that next opportunity. There's obviously the whole Colts debacle, what did or didn't happen there. And this was that next chance that he had. And he was able to bring in a general manager that he goes way back to his days in New England, maybe even JCU. I think John Carroll as well. Maybe they're there together. But I think the general point is like, this was the perfect setup, I would have thought, for him to be able to have a shot, implement the system he wants, second time around, and succeed. And now that it hasn't worked out, it's like, where do you go now? I mean, obviously he's made a ton of money, and he doesn't probably need to work another day the rest of his life. But coaches and players are wired like that. Like they want to get back into something and be competitive. Like I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't take an OC job somewhere else to move on and keep coaching. So it's just it's crazy that, to me, this happened so quickly there. But I understand it, because ultimately you can't point to the defense. Defense has been playing great. It's kept them in ball games. Yeah, it's been the offense, Leger.
Yeah, and if you look at this in totality, Brady, you can speak to this. I believe some guys are just good coordinators and not head coaches. I think Josh McDaniels fits in that realm. And if you look at what the Raiders were before he got there in 2021 with Rich Bisaccia, a guy that galvanized his team, dealing with everything you talked about with John Gruden, who ultimately had to tentatively resign, right? Then they had to deal with Henry Ruggs, Damon Arnett. And yet Rich Bisaccia galvanized that team with the talent. And Brady, you would probably say this, right? The talent they currently have is better than the talent they had in 2021. And they made the playoffs that year at 10-7. So you think about this, Derek Carr's there, right? Devontae Adams comes over to play with Derek Carr, and then you bench Derek Carr, right? Now Devontae Adams is stuck there. You're not using him. believe he had 1 catch for 11 yards. This is probably a future Hall of Famer. And then you talked about, whether the front office came down to him and said, Garoppolo's not getting it done. This guy has 9 interceptions. He's only played in 6 games. He leads the league in turnover and interceptions and hasn't even played the whole season. Did they say you need to play Aiden O'Connell? And he was like, well, I'm not going to do that. Where if you look at Aiden O'Connell, when he played with Devontae Adams had 13 targets and 8 catches that game. So I think it was a situation, like you said, Brady, Monday Night Football, the whole nation watching it. And as an owner, you're like, we can't be the embarrassment of the league. Like, I cannot let this keep going forward, even if I got to pay this guy for 4 more years. And that was the question, right? A lot of people, there's rumors that maybe Mark Davis is strapped for some cash, and that with that 6-year deal that, McDaniels was going to survive this just because he had 4 more years like we talked about, Brady. So I think he just didn't want to compound a mistake he's already made. I think if he can redo it, he probably does hire Rich Bisaccia. I think too many owners get caught up in, I need an offensive guru. Brady, you know this. First and foremost, you need a leader of men. You need a coach that the players respect, the players will galvanize and play for, right? At the end of the day, you can find somebody on the X's and O side on offense and defense, but if those guys in that locker room can't rely on that head coach, if that coach can't make decisions in adverse situations that don't cripple the team, then none of that matters. It doesn't matter how good he is schematic-wise, right? You got to have a guy that's leader of men, and that players are willing to play for that coach.
Right. I think it's interesting too. So if you look at sort of the totality of all the moves that they made, and you look at the guys in the locker room last night who were talking, like Devontae Adams, I was reading, I think Paul Gutierrez of ESPN said that he was like, Adams was like at a loss for words, and usually he's like very loquacious post game, on Monday night. And they go out and they trade for Devontae Adams for 2 first-round picks. And to pair him back with Derek Carr, who he played in college with, and then they signed Derek Carr to an extension, and then they released Derek Carr, and Derek Carr is like leaves the team, and there's some bad blood there, whatever it is. They bring in Jimmy G. There's the foot issue with Jimmy G, where they sign him to a contract extension, then find out his like foot's broken, and they have to sort of. That's kind of a mess. They signed Chandler Jones to a huge deal, and he not only has 1 bad season, but then has this really weird off-field stuff. Jacoby Myers, I think, has been really good. Like that's certainly that's certainly not something that anybody would lament them from signing. But the draft picks, to me, I don't think if I'm them, I'm saying, look, I understand we only have they only have 1 first-round pick that they've made because they traded the picks for Devontae Adams, and then they got the I can't. All I can think is Trayvon Walker, but the Texas Tech edge rusher at 7.
Wilson, Tyree Wilson.
Tyree Wilson. Sorry, I completely blanked on his name. Trayvon Walker, TW though. Okay, so I was actually not that far off. But anyway, they've got him as a first-round pick. He hadn't been very good this year at all. But I'd be like, and then Josh Jacobs, who was apparently just in a pissy mood on Monday night. Jacobs, I mean, look, Josh Jacobs, friend of the podcast, right? I can tell you that Josh Jacobs, and I think anybody would tell you that Josh Jacobs, has some beef with the current regime, with the way they handled the franchise tag originally, the way they handled his 5th-year option, running him in the preseason, all of that stuff. And he hadn't been as good this year. He would have made a lot more money on the open market last year than he will this year. There's just a lot of pieces. Everybody's kind of been just sour, right? But I would point back and be like, dude, you can fire me, but I want you to go and read Mike Mayock and John Gruden's draft pick history and tell me how this is all my fault. And that sort of comes back to job selection. Yes, you thought he was going to get patience because of 6 years, but then Brady, it's it is the NFL, and you just don't know how these owners are going to react.
No, you don't. And I think one of the things that's a misconception about Mark Davis is because he inherited the team and this is his business and livelihood, people think that he's cash strapped. He's been able to make a pretty penny, I think, during his time in Las Vegas. I believe they have one of the highest ticket prices on average of any team in the NFL. So despite the fact that you had relocation fees and obviously building the stadium and everything else that comes along with that, he's still able to make a decent amount of money from this. And I'm sure he was able to go back and talk to some of the folks in the front office and say, what does this look like if we want to move on from him? Because they're not going to be able to fire him with cause, but if they settle with Gruden for much less than what was originally thought they owed, and given how much these owners are making now, maybe it's not that bad of a financial situation. I want to go back to something Leger talked about though with Rich Bisaccia, because I'm in agreement. Like, I think they just overthought the whole situation.
Yeah.
And, they wanted to go with a guy who they thought, had a plan and knew who his general manager wanted to be, and Ziegler, and the relationship there, and have those two work together. I think the tough thing, though, about hiring a special teams coordinator as your head coach is, at least as from an owner's perspective, like you always are going to have to battle the fact that every other year, if you have really good coordinators, they're going to be hired as head coaches.
You're going to lose them. Yeah.
So you've got to be like, that's one thing that when you hire a guy who's on offensive or defensive mind, you've got stability. That's that cornerstone of the team where that side of the ball is going to be locked down. Even if you at one point give up the play calling duties to another OC, you could always revert back to taking that over if you lose a guy to a head coaching job. So that is one of the struggles that I think that, you see with a lot of special teams head coaching candidates getting jobs because of that concern. And you end up, people fall in love with the hot defense coordinator or offensive coordinator candidate because of that. There tends to be a little bit more stability in the staff for that reason. So look, Mark Davis makes the decision now. He's the first in line, right, to go find the best of the crop of head coaches. If I'm not mistaken, too, I think the process to get Josh
McDaniels changed now. They got to wait. Yeah.
Well, they have to wait, but I think also it didn't take a while for them to end up identifying Josh McDaniels as the guy. I mean, and part of it had to do with the fact that Bisaccia had coached them to 8-8. I think they still had some playoff hopes and all that. So it wasn't like, you were going to, move on at that point anyway. But I obviously, it's going to be a little different this time around, given the patience he has to have, but it does give them the first crack of any team that's one of them moves on from their coach to look at some of the best candidates and sell Las Vegas and I guess the appearance of stability or a longer leash.
What do we think, Deuce, about Antonio Pierce? I mean, this is a guy that he was playing in the NFL in 2009. So I mean, he's been coaching for a while, but he basically started coaching at Long Beach Poly High School as a head coach. Then was up to Arizona State for a while, which is his he went to Arizona actually. Was there until 2022, and then he became the linebackers coach, and now he's an interim head coach. Very Dan Campbell like track.
Yeah, I love AP, man. I had the pleasure of being teammates with him my rookie year, and the great thing about him, right? He was an undrafted free agent, and Brady, you know this about him. This guy had to, scratch and claw for everything he got in the NFL. The respect that he got, to this day, still the smartest player I've ever played with.
Wow.
I always remember what he told me my rookie year. We were just in the hot box. You know how it is, Brady. After practice, everybody gets in the sweat box, just chilling, just talking about life. He was like, "Dudes, I see you working, man. Keep grinding away." He said, "One thing you should do, though," he was like, "learn every defensive spot, right, on the defensive line. Then move to the linebackers. Then move to the safeties. Because if you know what everybody else is doing, you know when you can take chances and when you can't take chances." And like nobody had ever broke that down to me like that. And that's how he was able to stay in the league. Because if you look at him, right, he didn't look like the prototypical linebacker. He didn't have the body size of the prototypical linebacker, but he could outthink you on the field. He knew exactly where he needed to be every single play. So when you look at him taking over as head coach, Brady, you know this, most defensive guys, they want to be physical. They want to run the football, right?
Yeah.
Now, that probably doesn't bode well for Devontae Adams, but if Aiden O'Connell is going to be the quarterback, you're going to have to get the run game going because you have a young quarterback. Now, they will play action pass and take some shots with Devontae Adams, but he wants to keep the score close. That way they have an opportunity to win games at the end. He's going to want to coach a smart, tough football team, and that's how he was bred. So I think this could be a situation if they turn it around. Now, I'm not saying they're going to have a Rich Bisaccia turnaround, but if they potentially win 8 games or 9 games, I think he will be in the running to be the future coach for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, how the locker room responds. I mean, one thing I can tell you is I feel like they're going to respond in a resounding way because he's going to be a player's coach. I mean, he was in line to be the Arizona State head coach before that, the whole issue happened with recruiting violations over the COVID period. But he's got that sort of quality about him where I think he can help unite guys, help lead young men, which is really what you're ultimately looking for. I mean, Leger, you said that kind of earlier in regards to Rich Bisaccia and the kind of a leader of men he was. That's what I think like this team needs. Like this team is a team that they've got talent, they've got the ability, their defense has played well, they have studs on offense. It's just about figuring a way of putting it all together and getting this team to play some inspired football and making some plays here and there. Like it's a week-to-week business in the NFL. It really is. And a win this week and a win the next week like changes everything as far as how players feel and how they're operating. So I really think these players can rally around him, and he's going to have such a different feel within that locker room than maybe how it was with Josh McDaniels, who no matter what he said on the way in, tried to make it feel different than New England, but it felt like, again, it was just another version of like a New England coach who left there. And that is a very kind of corporate, sterile feel. I mean, I've played for so many that I got to tell you, one of the craziest things was like going to a locker room led by Pete Carroll and seeing how he operated and going, oh my God, this is like entirely different. Like teams do this, like this is how it can be. And you're going, damn, this is fun. And I think this will be fun again for a lot of the players in the locker room because of the kind of leader like Antonio Pierce is. Bo Hardigree takes over as their offensive coordinator. He's got roots back to Adam Gase. And I would say this, like this offense will be prepared. There'll be matched up things schematically. And I think they're going to take some shots and chances, but like watch how it may not be the quantity of targets that Davante Adams gets, although I would say this, it will, if they're going to throw the ball 25 times, I bet Adams is the number one read on 22 of them. Like I'll put it that way. So like he'll find ways of getting him those targets and touches. That doesn't mean that, defense doesn't take him away or something doesn't happen that doesn't allow the ball to go there. But like he still will get his fair share of opportunities, I think, along with Jacoby Myers and even the tight ends, as part of that. So he's Bo Hardigree's 39 years old. He's prepared for this moment. This is one of the more fascinating like teams to watch moving forward because they're not that far out of things in the AFC. No one is. Yeah. And like they're a team that like isn't that far away from turning things around, in my opinion.
Interesting. Spicy. All right. We got to take a break. I got a quick hot take I'll give you, and then we'll take a break. Mark Davis won the WNBA title with the Las Vegas Aces. He was dancing on the floor. I think he's like, what the hell? I can win in the WNBA. I can win in the NFL. I don't need this. All right, we're going to take a break. Yeah, that's right. Back-to-back titles. When we come back, some trade grades and midseason awards next.
An NWSL semifinal Sunday you'll never forget, with an icon leading the Shield winners against a legend who's hanging up her boots, and a budding star looking for back-to-back championships against a squad determined to give their captain a grand finale. All on CBS Sports Network.
All right, we've got a whole trade deadline recap show up, so I want to try and squeeze in both some trade deadline talk angles, just talk midseason awards and sort of where we're at, resetting that whole market or that whole evaluation on the trade deadlines. I'm curious, Deuce, what's if you had to pick one, what was your favorite trade from? And it doesn't have to be on the day of the deadline. I think it could be.
Okay, I was going to ask that. Okay.
Yeah. No, because the NFL, like you get out so far in front of them. It's not like the NBA, right? I mean, like if you wanted to go chase Claypool, we'd allow it. I would hope you would not.
Nah, not going there. Interesting one for me. This is a team that I had going to the NFC Championship game. If you follow us on social media, our guy Ruben does an amazing job. And a lot of people looked at me crazy when I said it, Brady. The Seattle Seahawks, I have them going to the NFC Championship game. And this is before this season even started. I think that trade with Leonard Williams was them hedging their bets, right? They realized that they have an opportunity with the team currently constructed that they could maybe dethrone the 49ers and make a run in the NFC Championship game. And I love what they did because they already refortified that defensive line this offseason when they brought in Draymond Jones, brought Jaron Reed back. Now you bring in a guy like Big Cat Leonard Williams, right? You get that nice three-man rotation in the interior. And Draymond Jones and Leonard Williams have the ability to kick outside, too. But let's not forget they lost Uchenna Nwosu already, right? So Daryl Tapp on the outside, right? He's going to be able to get one-on-one opportunities now that you got these guys in the interior defensive line being able to get after the quarterback. So I really love what the Seattle Seahawks did. I think close second obviously was the 49ers being petty, seeing that the Seattle Seahawks move. Let's go get Chase Young. I felt like it was kind of like Thanos in the Infinity Stone, right? That was like the fifth stone going into the glove. Like you got Nick Bosa on one side, Chase Young. Let's not forget, you won the offseason in free agency when you got Javon Hargrave at D tackle, and you pair him with Eric Armstead. Like that defense is with the last 2 weeks. I can see them turning it around with Chase Young at edge.
Yeah, I think in regards to like moves that are going to be, most helpful in a team potentially like making a Super Bowl run, it has to be the Chase Young one. And by the way, like San Francisco gets him for a 3rd round pick as opposed to the Bears who paid a 2nd round pick for Montez Sweat. Granted, Sweat's got a sack and a half more, I believe, this year so far.
Yeah, Chase Young's 3 years younger though.
True, but they're both facing what could be a next year might be a tag. And there's some injury concerns there. But that being said, like Nick Bosa across from Chase Young, taken back to their college days,
Correct.
like, my God. And look, they're on a 3-game skid. I don't know this was so much reactionary to what happened within the division and the Leonard Williams play as it is just looking at their defense right now. They're having a hard time matching up on the outside. Unless you can find a cornerback or a team that's willing to deal a cornerback, which is hard to do because anyone that can match up, they're like, we're not getting rid of that guy, especially for a 3rd-round pick. But you can go get a guy who can rush the passer and hit the quarterback before the ball ever gets out. And that's been the formula for San Francisco in recent years. So that's got to be the favorite as far as how it could impact potentially what happens at the very end of the season.
Yeah, I think both of those are the correct answers. And the Chase Young thing is really interesting too, because Chase Young is in line to get paid if he's been having a good year so far. You know, injuries have messed him up, and there was some talk about like his, you know, just sort of his locker room motivational type of stuff. You know, the does he love football sort of chatter. I think you get, like Brady says, you get him out there with Nick Bosa, you put him on, like he's not going to see he's not going to see any double teams. Like, I mean,
Can I
let him
throw in
lose.
one more?
Yeah.
Can I throw in one more for consideration? I love the fact, though, that the Vikings basically got Josh Dobbs for nothing.
Yeah.
And technically, Josh Dobbs had a 7th-round pick.
They really actually just swapped Josh Dobbs for Ezra Cleveland.
Right.
Because they went 6 in and 6 out. Yeah.
And a 7th-round pick.
Yeah.
So I look at that and just say, like, for a team that, you know, when you're looking around and you're 4-4, you're 2-0 in the division, you're trying to stay competitive in the playoff hunt, like they found a guy who I think had made Arizona competitive, and Pete is bashing him because he's played poorly the past 4 games, but say what you want, dude. Like he's kept that team competitive. And I think when Justin Jefferson comes back, they have more weapons in Minnesota for him to work with. I think he works in that system. I think he'll pick it up quick. I know he's not starting this week, but I liked that move for Minnesota as far as like not sitting on your hands and saying, well, we lost a guy who's playing at an MVP level. What are we going to do? We'll just look the next year. They're like, no, we're not dealing Danielle Hunter. We're not dealing with any other players that we're speculated about. We're going to go find a guy we feel like is smart. He's tough. He's competitive. He'll come in here and give us a shot at still making the playoffs. So I give a lot of credit to Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell and those guys for doing what they did, because they could have done nothing and they decided not to, and they made some things happen. Like I said, it basically is like a wash. They actually, I guess, net out 7 of them.
Yeah.
Well, quick,
go ahead.
I just want to ask Brady a quick question. As far as a quarterback, just want to go into your mindset. How difficult is it to learn 3 offenses in 1 year? And I know this kid's smart because he was like, what is he, like an aerospace engineer? Yeah.
So it's incredibly difficult, but there is this part of the conversation is, I think it's the 7th team in his career so far. Once you move around enough, you're just like, all right, football's football. And so it actually sometimes gets easier when you don't have to learn the entire playbook and you just learn the game plan for that week. Like you're always living with blinders on anyway during the course of the season, because each week's always going to be different the way you go about game planning, that it's actually sometimes easier just learning that. So I don't have to learn all the other BS that we learn in camp that we're never going to run or that never comes about, right? And football's football. So you might call something different, and that might be a little bit more difficult, but I give him every opportunity because we've already seen him do it with Arizona. So I think he can do it with Minnesota, because I think it's going to be a different system for him, but I think what he's trying to do. I mean, I think KOC will do a good job diagramming things up for him.
Really quickly, 1-word answer on the Bears giving up a 2nd-round pick for the 2nd year in a row to acquire a veteran player who's at the end of his contract.
Extension. They better be signed to an extension.
That's a good one.
You would think automatically extensions happening. That's the only way that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's better because I've heard.
I actually don't mind the trade though. I don't mind it.
I've heard people on both sides of it. I don't love it, but I mean, like the Chase Claypool thing certainly lingering there. All right, let's talk about some mid-season awards. We're 8 games in. Brady, Offensive Rookie of the Year, first half so far.
CJ Stroud. I think CJ Stroud. I think he's played at the highest level of any of the rookie quarterbacks so far. And I guess you could throw Bijan in there, but he's been a little quiet of late.
Struggled the last couple games,
Yeah. I think it has to be CJ Stroud.
I don't have a problem with that. The current market for Offensive Rookie of the Year, CJ Stroud is -140. Puka Nacua 4-1. Jameer Gibbs 12-1. Yeah, Jordan Addison 14-1 and Bijan 16. Will Levis at 30-1 is a little spicy too. If he just got
Well, especially
he played
yeah,
one game.
if we're saying up to this point, right? Like up to
No,
this
yeah.
point,
I meant from a betting perspective. Yeah, I mean,
Gotcha.
I wouldn't be opposed to betting CJ Stroud at -140 because I think the Texans are a good team and they'll keep winning games. But I mean, would you go CJ Stroud as well, Deuce?
Oh, CJ Stroud without a doubt. I like the Puka Nacua one. Thing is now the Rams have kind of trailed off the last couple of weeks. We'll see where they go in the future. I thought after they beat Seattle week 1 and they were competitive throughout the first 4 or 5 weeks, I was like, maybe this team could make a run at the playoffs. But you know how it is, Brady. At the end of the day, you still need talent on your team. And I think they're talent deficient as far as, having the main players on their team to make a run. So
how about
what Puka Nacua has done is out of this world. But if they only win like 5 games, could he technically still win it? Maybe,
it's gonna be tough. Gonna be tough without Stafford, especially if Stafford banged up. What about a defensive rookie of the year of the first half?
Stephon Witherspoon's like the first one that comes to mind. Who are you thinking?
Nah, I'm going with my guy who I preseason said would win it, Jalen Carter.
Oh, he's the favorite right now.
I mean, what he's done is ridiculous at the defensive tackle position. He's been unblockable on third down. And then everybody was worried about his effort and all that, but he went to the right team. Howie Roseman did a good job making sure that they dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. They knew he would be comfortable there, but we've seen him play with elite effort this year, right? He's been unblockable at times. So I would say him, and then the close second is what Brady said. Devin Witherspoon would be my close second.
Yeah, I mean, Carter's banged up a little bit, right? And that was
he's back though, but he's
playing back. We're saying like, I think if you look at Witherspoon, he's kind of.
Did you guys look at the odds at all before you made your picks?
No.
Okay, good. Because Jalen Carter's -115 at FanDuel and then Devin Witherspoon +130. So I mean, like you nailed that is the perception in the market.
Guys.
Yeah. And then the next closest is Brian Branch at 10-1, Will Anderson 13. And then after that is Joey Porter.
Sneaky pick, Brian Branch.
Like I was gonna say, like if the Detroit Lions continue, man, like he's
after those 5 guys. Oh no, after those 4 guys, Will Anderson 13-1. Next closest, Joey Porter Jr. 60-1. So really a condensed race right now. I think if I were betting that market, I think Branch and Witherspoon would be the 2 guys I'd look at just because Seattle playing so well and Witherspoon has been. He's a beast against the run.
The Eagles have the best record in football, though.
That's true. Very fair. Very fair.
I look at what Witherspoon's done for that secondary. I mean, he's got an interception. Yeah. He's got a couple sacks. He's kind of been like all over that defense.
Yes.
It's like he's really made a huge impact on a team that I think it's starting to find itself defensively. And obviously, the addition of Leonard Williams is only going to help. But he's just kind of really stood out to me as like the most consistent. And honestly, I might even throw like Jalen Carter's been a part of that too because he's been so dominant when we've seen those plays. But Brian Branch is the other one that like you look at that secondary and how much better the Lions are this year. And I know they brought in Cam Sutton, some others, but he's definitely a part of the reason too.
Yep.
Yeah. If you look at Witherspoon, I think, and I'll let you go, Brinson. The thing that's astonishing, Brady, is he never played slot corner, and they've put him in the slot, and he's dominated at the slot. I don't think people understand how hard that is to do if you've actually never played that position because there's so much space to cover in the middle of the field.
All right, Brady, offensive player of the year. I mean, I think this comes down to probably 2 receivers and a running back that you're choosing between.
I mean, A.J. Brown would be up there, right? With what he's done. Like he's the first that comes to mind.
Not the guy that has 1,000 yards.
Well, I was going to say Tyreek Hill might be up there for MVP.
Oh, that's true.
So, like, I mean, if we're being real, like, I mean,
correct.
It might be 2 wide receivers that we see taking that award right now. I mean, I would say that's kind of been the splash play, right? Like, yeah, I guess you could put Mahomes up there, but statistically,
we'll get to MVP. Right? So, I mean, I think you're probably picking between Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is the favorite right now at +140, and then you got Christian McCaffrey, and then AJ Brown at the top 3.
Oh, Christian's in front of AJ.
Yeah, AJ Brown's +750. I think that's what
I would sprinkle some money on that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like almost 8-1 for AJ Brown put up this kind of season. McCaffrey at +160. Next closest Jamar Chase 20-1. Kelsey 35-1. Diggs 35-1. I mean, it feels like good. Like you,
Kelsey might have won it if Taylor Swift was there for every game.
You think she's going to be in Frankfurt?
I don't know. She got an international tour right now, right?
An international tour, you say?
Hey,
Snowman, Germany, buddy.
Hey.
I don't know where she is right now, but I think let's see, Taylor Swift tour. What about defensive player of the year, Deuce?
Yeah, I'm gonna hedge my bet again. I went Myles Garrett. That's who I would go with so far this year. The Browns are playing elite defense. Couldn't squeak a win away with PJ Walker last week versus Seattle, but what Myles Garrett has done is utterly ridiculous right now. Again, I think Josh Allen is another guy that could potentially be in the defensive end, not the quarterback. He could be in that award category as well. But right now, for me, it's Myles Garrett.
How about Myles Garrett? It's kind of like my first go-to, but what about Dexter Lawrence? He's been phenomenal as the interior
Giants
defensive
just suck.
player,
That's
dude.
the only issue.
I know. That's the problem. It's like he won't get as much praise, but he should. Yeah. He's been phenomenal.
Yeah, yes. Micah Parsons 2-1, Myles Garrett 2-1, TJ
Really?
Watt plus 250, and then Aiden Hutchinson at 30-1. I wouldn't hate sprinkling on a little bit, just if he could pick that production back up, and he sort of slowed down the last couple of weeks. By the way, Taylor Swift, for those wondering, doesn't have another international show until Thursday, November 9th in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
It's a long way away from
that's
Germany.
a far ride.
A long way away from Germany, though.
Well,
Yeah.
but
Well,
is it that far?
She's got a plane, Brady, right?
Well, she does, but she's also very conscious about her carbon footprint.
Why do you think she made an appearance at the Jets game? Because she wanted people Googling Taylor Swift Jets not to see her carbon footprint. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can't do it's Wednesday. You can go to Germany and then fly to Argentina.
That's
actually, I'm not gonna.
The Chiefs need her, man. They would struggle without her.
Did you say that's an expensive trip? She's Taylor Swift.
It's a lot of gas, man.
Just saying, man. Just because you have more money doesn't mean you're always going to spend it that way.
That's true. All right, Brady, do you have anything on? Did you give defensive player of the year? I was looking at Taylor Swift dates.
Yeah, I said like Myles
Dexter
Garrett.
Lawrence.
Okay, you said all right. We'll go to.
I said an interesting one would be Dexter Lawrence. Myles Garrett's who like I picked before the season. That's kind of who I'd lean on here.
Dexter 100-1.
I know, which like dude, he's been awesome, but like Leger said, it usually goes to a team.
It'll go to an edge guy for sure. What about what about coach of the year?
Ooh.
Midway, I would say Pete Carroll.
Really?
Pete Carroll's all right. So Dan Campbell's the favorite at plus 230. Mike McDaniel at 330.
Robert Sirianni and the Eagles have the best record, and he's got 2 new coordinators. It's like
that is true.
I mean, come on.
So
Sirianni some love.
Yeah, so here's the coach of the year usually goes to the coach with the biggest increase over their preseason win total. So Sirianni, because I think they're at like 11.5 or 12, which just makes it a little tough to get it.
Yeah, I get that.
Robert Saleh, if the Jets make the playoffs,
he's got to win it,
right?
You would
Robert Saleh would be up there. What about Kevin O'Connell? After the start,
the Vikings win, especially with Kirk Cousins
now, like Jared Hall and Josh Dobbs,
you get Kevin O'Connell at 40-1. That's a good bet. You bet Kevin O'Connell 40-1, and it's like the Vikings like win because there's next 4 games are easy.
And here's the other thing: is even though they won 13 games last year, I think their win-loss total during the season was 8.5 or something, or 9.
Exactly.
I mean, they're at 4 now. They're halfway there. Like, and now considering the circumstances, now they're probably not going to win the division because they won't catch Detroit. They are 2-0 in the division though. So I mean, I guess I should say never. So
all right, what about MVP? Dews is going to have to jump off at the. We'll do MVP, take a break, and then Brady and I will talk about Thursday Night Football. Who's your MVP for the first half?
Go ahead, Dews.
It's got to be Tua.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
To me, it's Tua for sure.
See, that's the funny thing. Like, I was going to say, like, I don't know. I mean, Tua, if you say Tua, you have to factor in then Tyreek because he's been
Tyreek. Yeah, I think Tyreek's a close second, and then AJ's third.
I would say
Tyreek's 50-1.
Tyreek, and then I'd say Christian McCaffrey, and then MVP. I'd say Tua. Yeah.
Mahomes is the favorite at plus 270. These are all at FanDuel. Jalen Hurts 3.5-1, Tua plus 370, Lamar 6-1, Josh Allen 14, Trevor Lawrence 18, Joe Burrow 18.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So Joe Burrow's my preseason pick, and I'm sticking by it because he.
I mean, the way he's played lately, that might be a great pick.
I'm telling you right now, 18-1.
18-1 is a good bet.
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow was 6-1 or 7-1 before the season, and now 18-1. And you can get him like when he's 100% healthy. The Bengals are playing well. They're 4-3. Like that's a good look.
Or 4 or 5. The Bengals do every year, man.
Yep. Start slow. Okay. Actually, I'll tell you what. We'll take a break and come back. Dudes can say we'll do Thursday Night Football really fast. How about that? We'll do Thursday Night Football next.
Well, you need the sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
All right, Thursday night, Brady. Battle of two quarterbacks that really, I mean, just waltz them into the Hall of Fame already. Kenny Pickett versus Will Levis.
Well, we're assuming Pickett's there, right? Because he's coming off the rib injury.
Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier today. Like, I used to get mine shot up with Novocaine back when I
Novocaine?
Yeah, that's what they do to numb it, so you can't feel anything.
So you don't feel anything.
It does work. It does work.
Bet you feel it on Monday.
like my guy, Coach Herman, said on Remember the Titans, just like Novocaine, give it time. It always works.
It does. It works. But every moment after that, you're going to feel it. I just think this is a tough spot for Will Levis, who was phenomenal in his debut. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And everything was on display. The arm strength, the ability to throw kind of off platform, or not necessarily a perfect spot, but all of what Pete Prisco would give a lot of credit because he talked a lot about him. All that was on display. Hopkins seemed like renewed and all that. It's just a tough spot. Like, I love the under in this game, but I also think like the Steelers, that defense at home, pick it back. They just take care of the football. Like, they should be able to take care of business. This is that like time of the year where the short week at home plays a big advantage in my mind.
Yeah. Do you think? Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Dude. Sorry. No. You go ahead. I was setting you up.
I was going to say, just when you look at this game, right, and you look at Coach Vrabel's teams and prime time and against the spread, he's just one of the best to do it. And this is a tough spot for Will Levis. The only thing is, right, Brady, you know this, as teams get more film on you, they can game plan. The good thing is it's a short week, so you don't know how much game planning Pittsburgh Steelers are going to do against Will Levis, right? We see DeAndre Hopkins field renew. We saw Derrick Henry look renewed in that game. Right now, the rumors of them being traded are gone. Now they can just focus on this season. And I, like Pete, I was higher on Will Levis than a lot of people were, right? Because when he was with Liam Cohen, we saw him in a NFL type offense have success. When the guys kept him up, right, he was able to throw down the field. Now, he did have some accuracy issues, but I thought that could be corrected at the next level. So they're going to lean on the run game, Brady. We know this. That's a Vrabel team. They're going to lean on the run game. But the one thing that we saw from this Titans offense that we hadn't seen was them actually push the ball down the field. And if you look at the Steelers, right, who are they missing in that back end right now? Who's the eraser? Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think that could be the pivotal point in this game tomorrow.
All right. Who you got, Brady? Who you taking in this game? By the way, the line currently is Steelers minus 2.5, minus 114, total of 36.5. I mean, just a real barn burner on Thursday night.
Well, they're starting to play a factor in that portion of the country. So
for sure,
both these teams, I think.
What'd you know about that? What'd you know about that weather, Florida boy?
Yeah, both these teams, I think, have a hard time scoring here. I like the under, but I'll lay the points too with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
How about you, Deuce?
It's so funny because when we were on here last week, we talked about how the under had hit so much, and then the Saints and Jaguars obliterated the over in the game. Obliterated the over in the game. As I look at this game, I think it will be a low-scoring game. I'm leaning towards Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans. Now, it's hard for me to say that, Coach Tomlin's going to lose 2 in a row at home. That usually never happens. But I'm leaning the plus 2.5 with the Tennessee Titans. Give me the points with the Titans.
Spicy. I like it. Okay, it's this is not going to be a high-scoring game. The only way it's like high-scoring is if Kenny Pickett or Trubisky plays. It's like Trubisky and Will Levis are just coughing the ball up, and teams are taking it the other way for points, which could easily happen. All right, that's it for Tuesdays with Brady. For Brady, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll have the pick show tomorrow, and of course Sunday night Super Friends recap. See you guys later.